Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining me on this edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe television. Our major stories tonight: there was tension today in the Douala 5 subdivision as bike riders took to the streets in front of the Lekam branch office in Bona Musadi neighborhood Douala 5 subdivision, protesting against alleged electoral fraud by local officials. They demand transparency and authenticity in the electoral process. And away from that, Eric Bekobe Vondo, the husband of the late Dian Yango, a teacher at Government Secondary School Dogbasi, has been sentenced to 20 years in prison for her murder. The verdict was delivered in his absence, and a warrant has been issued for his arrest. Those are top stories tonight. The news in full in a jiffy. Thank you so much for staying with Equinoxe Television. For presentation, I am Immaculate Fogwe. The Electoral Court of Appeal has sentenced Eric Bekobe Vondo to 20 years in prison for the murder of his wife, Dian Yango, a teacher at Lycée Dogbasi, that is Government Secondary School Dogbasi. The court delivered the verdict in absentia, issuing a warrant of arrest for Vondo's arrest. The sentence is more severe than the initial verdict, which sparked outrage among the victim's family and civil society actors. Dian Yango's death in November 2023 drew widespread attention to domestic violence and femicide in Cameroon. Her family and advocates have been pushing for a stronger stance against gender-based violence, including a specific law to protect women. The case has reignited calls for action to address the prevalence of violence against women in Cameroon. Let's now take a listen to Barrister Charlotte Chakunte, Dian's lawyer, and also to Caroline Veng, a feminist who took part in that sentence.
Has changed because the court decided that what we was waiting for was to change the behavior of the man. So they condemned him to stay in the prison for 20 years. And the court gave the order to everybody to catch him where they can meet him so that he will go to the prison and stay there for 20 years. We were expecting that they would change the behavior. In French, we call it assassinat. It means that he premeditates, he thinks before kill. But when they consider only the fact that he beat the woman until he died, they don't consider really what happened, because according to all the matter, he prepared himself to kill. That is what I can say. But it's better than what happened the first time, yes.
And we can say that we are happy, but we still want to advocate so that the term femicide will be legally recognized, and that for the other women who will be dead because of domestic violence, they will receive a fair judgment for the case. And also we continue to do awareness and sensitize in community and families, and of course fight.
And now we move to Bamenda, where two fire incidents happened in that part of the country in just 24 hours, causing destruction and hospitalizing people. One fire burnt down a building in the Hilltop Quarter, and another hit a storage site where fuel was kept illegally. Now, traders are picking up the pieces, and people are wondering why these dangerous activities aren't being stopped, as Bustela tells us. I'll be coming to this report done by Bustela in Bamenda, where she says that fire has happened in two fire incidents have happened in just 24 hours, causing destruction and resulting to people being hospitalized. One fire burnt down a building in the Hilltop Quarter, and another hit a storage site where fuel was kept illegally. Now, traders are picking up the pieces, and people are wondering why these dangerous activities keep on fueling on, despite the fact that is very dangerous to the people. We have details with Bustela.
The first fire broke out on Tuesday at upstation Bamenda, consuming an entire building. Eyewitnesses say the flames spread rapidly, leaving residents helpless as property go up in smoke. Barely a day later, another fire erupted at about 4 a.m. on Tuesday morning at the Bali Park neighborhood in Bamenda 2 subdivision. The blaze, seen from across neighborhoods in Bamenda, started at a parking area reportedly used for storing illicit fuel. The Army Rescue say they received distress calls and arrived at the area at about 5 a.m. to huge flames. During their interventions aimed at limiting the propagation of the fire, they rushed 3 people to the hospital after they suffered shock from the incident. Several businesses were reduced to ashes. Residents say this tragedy could have been avoided if authorities had cracked down on the illegal fuel trade that continues to operate in open view. As livelihoods burn and families count their losses, many are now asking, why do security forces allow illegal fuel trading to persist, and who is benefiting from this dangerous business?
Stella reporting there. Meantime, uneasy calm now prevails in the Douala 5 subdivision following a protest demonstration by hundreds of Cameroonians, most of them being bike riders. The angry population say they suspect fraud maneuvers. Anti-riot police stopped the situation from degenerating by using tear gas to disperse the protesters. Annabella reports.
These Cameroonians, a majority of them bike riders, staged a protest demonstration at the Electoral head office at Santa Barbara in Bonamusadi in the Douala 5 subdivision. They say they had echoes of alleged fraud and manipulation after they had exercised their civic duties. Anti-riot police officers who were informed stormed the scene and began dispersing the crowd with water cannons. All the people are expecting is for their votes to count and the proper results delivered by the Constitutional Council.
And according to officials of Elecam, that where the incident occurred, the protest demonstration had nothing to do with electoral fraud. They say an Elecam official was only trying to clear off newspapers from the office after that election. And away from that, the senior divisional officer for Uri Division has banned street demonstrations in Douala until the swearing-in of the new president, citing stability concerns amid a tense political climate. This move has sparked debate with some civil society actors accusing the government of abusing power and potentially escalating tensions. Critics argue that such bans can suppress citizens' rights to peaceful assembly and also expression. Cedric Chakutio has more on this.
While Cameroonians are patiently waiting results of the 2025 presidential elections, the senior divisional officer of the Uri Division, Celia Kumari Vogo, has taken a measure banning street demonstrations in the city of Douala until the swearing-in of the new president of the Republic. In a decree signed on October 14, 2025, the administrative authority stipulates that any gathering or undeclared public demonstration will not be tolerated during this period. An outing firmly described as an abuse by some civil society actors.
C'est un arrêté, n'est-ce pas, qui...
This is a decree whose objective is to discriminate against fear, and we know that the method of the current regime has always been to use terror to contain the population. It is also an instrument that we rely on to justify and explain any repression that they may use.
Justifier, n'est-ce pas, pour expliquer la répression qu'ils pourraient utiliser.
It's still a shame that despite calls for responsibilities and freedom of fundamental rights, we still have to go to this point.
Libertés fondamentaux, que l'on en soit encore là.
According to Roland Berchon, civil society actor, with this ban, the senior divisional officer intends to preserve stability in a tense political context, but also to prevent any attempt at public protest that could worsen the situation. She adds that banning Cameroonians from manifesting their rights might instead raise more tension.
Si on empêche les gens de s'exprimer, alors
if we prevent people from expressing themselves, then the effect we will have is the opposite impulsion. Democracy exists precisely to prevent channels for the people to express themselves, and among these channels is peaceful demonstration, which allows the population or a group to be able to say in public what doesn't suit them.
permet à une population ou à un groupe quelconque de pouvoir dire sur la place publique ce qui ne l'arrange pas.
While awaiting the official proclamation of the results by the Constitutional Council, Cameroonians continue their calls for a transparent and fair results.
Seri Chakutio reporting there. Due to an alleged massive falsification of election results in favor of the ruling CPDM party during vote counting in Jinicom subdivision, Boyo division of the Northwest region, one of the ruling party militants decides to immediately resign in defense of truth, conscience and honor. Maurice Tibam Kumbe tabled his resignation letter on Wednesday, October 15th, to the section president CPDM Boyo Jinicom. He says he does not want to be part of a group of people who want to totally strangulate the country's democracy. Innocent Aze reports on the content of that letter.
Maurice Thiban Kube dumped the CPDM party membership on Wednesday, October 15th, 3 days after the presidential election. In a resignation letter addressed to the section presidents of the Cameroon People's Democratic Movement Party, Boyo 1 in Jinicom, Northwest Region, Maurice Thiban Kube states that his decision has been triggered by massive CPDM frauds during vote counting. A resignation, he says, is in defense of truth, conscience and honor.
This mathematical miracle of fraud has brought shame and ridicule upon the proud sons and daughters of Jinicom, people who stand for honesty, dignity and self-respect. How could a land that observes ghost towns and widespread boycott suddenly produce over 2,000 votes for the CPDM? It is a mockery of reason and an insult to the collective intelligence of our community.
Figures that sent a shockwave down his spine, knowing fully well the separatists imposed the lockdown did not permit the electorate take any risk to cast their ballots.
For the sake of my conscience, my image and my honor, I refuse to remain part of this theater of deceit. I cannot and will not be counted among those who trade integrity for false statistics and moral bankruptcy. Therefore, I withdraw my membership from the CPDM effective immediately. I would rather stand alone with the truth than march with a crowd of imposters.
To him, the President Paul Biya's party of Flames, which once claimed to be a democratic movement, has now become a demolition machine, demolishing truth, conscience and the trust of the Cameroonian people.
I therefore resign from the Cameroon People's Democratic Movement, the CPDM, with immediate effect. So, the so-called results of October 12, 2025 presidential election in Jinicom are a national embarrassment and a direct assault on truth and decency. The claim that 2,241 people voted for Paul Biya in Jinicom is a shameless fabrication. Everyone knows that fewer than 130 citizens showed up at the Jinicom Community Hall, where Electoral had conveyed all polling stations of the municipality.
Maurice Thiban Kube concluded the letter addressed to the section presidents of the CPDM, Boyo 1 Jinicom, by pledging his availability for further clarification, but stressed not to be in complicity with anyone in the demolition of the already ramshackle democracy of the fatherland.
In the same vein, the recent press release by Minister of Territorial Administration Paula Tanganji condemning Issa Chuma Bakari for publicly appreciating Cameroonians for massively voting for him on October 12 has provoked reactions from Cameroonians. According to the minister, the presidential candidate auto-proclaimed himself winner of the presidential election, which he thinks is wrong according to the law. And speaking to Equinoxe television, barrister Alice Com explains that there is no law that prohibits these people from speaking out about the elections. We have greater details in this report done by Mala Glory.
The Minister of Territorial Administration, Paula Tanganji, has issued warnings to the presidential candidate Issa Chuma Bakari for openly appreciating Cameroonians for standing behind him on October 12 presidentials in Cameroon. In a press release signed on October 14, in Yaoundé, Minister Tanganji condemns Issa Chiruma's outings and promised he will be dealt with rigorously and firmly when the time comes. Warnings which many, especially legal minds, describe as intimidating. According to Barrister Alice Com, a Cameroonian lawyer, politician and human rights activist, frowns at the wrong use of the law by the minister.
As a lawyer, a practitioner of law, we are happy if he can tell us which law has been violated by Mr. Chiruma by saying what he said. And as a good law, if the law must be respected, you have sanctions in the same law saying that if you violate this law, this will happen.
The human rights activist Barrister Alice Com goes further to call on the Constitutional Council to respect the will of Cameroonians as they wait patiently for results.
We are expecting a free, transparent, and credible election because we are accustomed to so much fraud in this regime. We know this is their specialty, and they use, instead of trying to respect what the law wants, that the election must be free, transparent, and credible, which is where I was waiting for Mr. Atanganji to be able to move.
These reactions comes after Issa Chiruma, in a video that went viral on social media, recognized the massive turnout of Cameroonians in different polling stations.
And Cameroonians are exuding optimism about change in their country, fueled by high voter turnout in the recent presidential election. Despite the enthusiasm, many are growing impatient with the Constitutional Council's slow pace in declaring the official results. Some citizens in Douala express hope that their vote will count and that the council will ensure transparent and fair outcome. Once more, Malaglory reports.
Cameroonians are calm and optimistic 48 hours after the October 12 presidentials. Going through the streets of Douala this Tuesday, October 14, many expressed their feelings.
Que le meilleur gagne. Nous on veut seulement que le changement dans le pays.
I'm certain that everything is going well because the people express their mind. I, for one, I cover more than 5 central votes, and the results were favorable to the opposition. For now, we are observing everything is going well. We are certain that the change will certainly come.
I feel we have positive mind already due to the statistics that we have seen on social media.
We pray that the will of God will prevail over Cameroon and let the people's heart and cry be heard.
They say the 15 days announced by the Constitutional Council to declare the final results is too long due to the increasing level of technology that can assist at every level. Also, compared to neighboring African countries like Nigeria, in maximum 5 days the new president is known.
I don't know why we should wait this long time before deliberation, but as for me, I think that if it's better that even 2 days, if it's too much, I mean just 2 days is enough time for them to give us the result than making us to wait all this while like that.
Through the media today, we already know a lot of things going on in the election. So many results have already been published. Something that could just be handed in few hours has to take 2 weeks, so it's a lot of time.
However, the law must be respected. It is stated in Section 137 of the Electoral Code that the Constitutional Council shall proclaim the results in 15 days.
C'est la loi électorale, on l'accepte.
On est habitué avec cette loi, donc on est obligé d'attendre. For now, the law said it is after 2 weeks, so we have to respect the law. Despite the fact that they might try to do everything, but the people are conscious of what they did. We went out massively to vote and we know what we did. So we are ready for the change.
Meantime, Cameroonians continue to wait for the Constitutional Council to ensure that the vote of every Cameroonian is taken into consideration.
Now, United for Cameroon Civil Society organization has warned against any move that could jeopardize a peaceful handing over of power to the winner of the October 12 presidential election in Cameroon. The group says that the result at their disposal gives Issa Chuma Bakari a minimum 77% victory, which should be respected and protected by all state institutions for the interest of peace and progress in Cameroon. We have more with Fomi Armstrong Sander.
For Cameroon is a coalition of civil society organizations in Cameroon. In respect to Section 113 of the Electoral Code, the group says information collected from independent observers, civil society corporations, and political parties give candidate Issa Chuma Bakari a sufficient lead of 69 to 77% in the October 12, 2025 presidential election. This, it says, is enough to confirm his victory in this crucial election. Addressing the Prime Minister, the Minister of Defense, and the Minister of Territorial Administration, United for Cameroon warned against any move that could jeopardize the peaceful handing over of power to the winner. Highlighting the need to respect the will and the rights of Cameroonians, United for Cameroon presents three main conditions, notably the protection of the population and the non-use of force, a guarantee of the security of journalists and political actors, and the easing of a peaceful transition. The group urges concerned ministers to order security officials and civil administrators to stay off any form of peaceful manifestation and the expression of will and rights by the Cameroonian people. It recalls that things have always gotten out of control in Cameroon each time peaceful protests have been met with repression. From the cases of the 1990 through 1992, 2008, 2018 and the Anglophone crisis, United for Cameroon coalition says this example speaks loud enough against any planned repression on the expressions of rights by the Cameroonian people.
And that's it for this first part of the news. Talking Point comes up next. My guest tonight is a civil society actor, Song Derick. Good evening. It's a pleasure having you Talking Point tonight.
To you, good evening to Cameroonians all over the world, and good evening to all who went to the polls to exercise their civic duty. It's always a pleasure to be on your platform, especially at this time after a very, very busy pre-campaign, campaign and election periods in Cameroon.
Song Derick, what are your observations on the conduct of the presidential election in Cameroon? Were there any notable irregularities or, let's say, issues noticed at your polling station right here in the city of Douala?
Well, for this year, I think the turnout, first of all, was massive. And my observation, especially in my polling station and polling unit, is a very positive one. Because people turned out in their numbers, people voted, they waited for their votes to be counted, and the result to be passed. Talking about irregularities in the center where I voted, the election and casting of votes went hitch-free until after the moment of counting, where the polling agents and Electoral officials refused to fill the return reports, that's the pages. The population and the electorate insisted that the results that were counted and written on the boards must be filled in the return reports, pages, and signed. I think that's what took time, because every electorate, in their numbers, in their various polling units, insisted that those papers must be filled and signed. In other polling stations where I visited, like Dax, Le Florent, and École Publique Sodico, we saw some irregularities like the stuffing of ballot papers, inconsistencies in numbers, where maybe you have 150 people who voted, and then ballot papers, you could have 200 plus in the ballot box without explanation. But so far, so good. It was a positive observation.
Now, what's your assessment of voters' participation and enthusiasm during this election?
After the 90s elections, I'm not sure we have had enthusiasm and participations in elections like we had this year, 2025. We had people who had voters' card and had never voted. But this year, they decided in their numbers to go out and vote. So I think the participation rate was relatively very high. People were excited to vote. But not only to vote, people were excited to vote, defend their vote. Because in the past, when people went to the polling units, they casted their votes, went back home, or to beer parlors. But this time around, it was not business as usual. We saw people coming out in their numbers, spending the whole day in the polling station, and waited until you could see the signs on social media. Everybody wanted to be counted as a participant. In fact, those who did not participate in this year's presidential elections feel like they have been abandoned and feel like part of them is missing, because it was a decision year 2025 and it is a verdict year 2025. The participation was really encouraging, and I must say kudos and congratulations to all Cameroonians who came out in their numbers to fulfill their civic responsibility and not only perform but stood there and made sure that the votes they casted on the ballot were counted and their voices were heard.
Territorial Administration, Paula Tanganji, has promised the candidate Issa Chuma Bakari will be dealt with rigorously and firmly when the time comes. After the presidential candidate claimed victory in Sunday's election, what do you make of his outing? Do you think Atanganji's statement constitutes an attempt to caution, intimidate, or let's say suppress the opposition?
It is Minat's duty to work and function in the ambits of the law. But it is equally very sad when Minat sends rigorous warning to a presidential candidate that the candidate will be dealt with. In fact, those words by Minat sends a clear message to Mr. Issa Chuma Bakari, the candidate, and that message is clear. Hello, candidate, you are changing the script we have. Our script did not put you as the winner. Please don't change the script. But nonetheless, we know that the statement of candidate Issa Chiruma has been blown out of proportion. He had merely called the electorate to defend their choice and to defend their votes. And on calling and warning him, or Minat warning, just like he had warned that Cameroonians should not publish results or celebrate. We've never seen a football match played under the supervision of viewers and spectators in various polling units, and you leave knowing that your candidate, for instance, where I voted, a particular candidate won at least 86% in all polling units. You didn't expect me not to celebrate if that candidate is my candidate. You wouldn't expect the minister not to celebrate if it was his own candidate winning. Please, it is true that the results are not official, are not yet official, but it is equally true that in the various polling units and polling stations where we were, Cameroonians have a right to celebrate their temporal results and do it happily.
What are your thoughts on the future of Cameroon's electoral process, given the current developments? We have seen bike riders coming out on the streets to revindicate for what they call as fight against what they call electoral fraud. Do you believe the outcome will reflect the will of the people?
I think we all believe and know that in the nearest future, the Cameroon electoral process needs to be amended because it is marred by several irregularities that we have seen. But you see the question you're asking about the proclamation of the results, if the will of the people will be respected. That is a very tough one. Like the Minat boss will say, I am not a competent authority to declare results. But then, we need to call the competent authority, Electoral, Minat, and the power that be, that they should respect the choice and voices of the people. Let the results we had on the ballot box not catch fever or get malaria or headache somewhere, because the people spoke and they spoke loudly. They know what they wanted and voted for what they wanted. In the process, let the competent authority give the results as they ought to be. If the competent authority do not give the results that reflect the people's choice, the cause, then they are throwing back the judgment to the court of the people. And you know, the court of the people, this is 2025, and Cameroonians are watching. We have seen a lot of electoral fraud reported, and you see Cameroonians are on their feet reporting every irregularity anywhere they are without wasting time. That tells you that Cameroonians went to the polls, they went to the ballot knowing what they wanted, and they have asked for what they wanted. Let the Constitutional Council, let Electoral make sure that the results...
Now, many people say the just ended voting exercise was marred by several irregularities. A concrete or a case in point is an example. A clear example is that of Maurice Tibam Kumbe, a CPDM militant from Ginicom. It's a locality found in Boyo in the northwest region, who resigned from the party, alleging massive fraud by his comrades. How much is this a cause for concern?
The fraud in the Cameroon electoral process did not start today. We are only exposed to it because we have a hungry generation that is thirsty for change. We have a social media conscious generation that is updating everything. The case of the CPDM representative who resigned in Ginicom, a decision I hail so much because he was unwilling to associate with daylight robbery, is appreciated. But we saw ballot stuffing. We saw places where the numbers of those who voted and the number of ballot papers were more. We saw places where ballot papers were being fitted in envelopes. We saw places where fingerprints were being forged. The sad story is not a forgery. If it is that FSNC was frauding, SDF was frauding, and other political parties like PCRN were all frauding, it will be different. But this case, every fraud we got anywhere was associated to a particular political party. This is a sign of desperation. And it is not good for the politics of Cameroon, because people cannot go out to exercise their voices, and then we have ballots being stopped. We heard AGO, SDO, somewhere in the northwest region, say that there were about 100 people in the polling station. But we have seen results come out of those kind of places where we have 6,000 voters in favor of a certain political party. This is the 21st century. This is 2025. This is the IT world. This is the artificial intelligence moment. And our leaders should not joke with our choices. Cameroon is not for ministers. Cameroon belongs to Cameroonians. And there's no more a Cameroonian.
For accepting my invitation on Talking Point tonight.
Thank you very much, Emma, for having me. And thanks to the million viewers of Equinoxe television. I want to put it clear. What Cameroonians are asking from the competent authority is not a miracle. We are simply asking for honesty, justice, truth, and transparency.
Sang Derick, civil society actor based right here in the city of Douala. Thank you so much for your time. That's what put a cap to today's edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe television. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for always staying with us, staying in the company of interesting programs on Equinoxe television. See you tomorrow, same time, God willing. Bye-bye for now.